This podcast is brought to you by Infrastructure Masons, uniting builders for the digital future.
One, two, three, four.
Looking to turn your innovative idea into the next big thing in digital infrastructure? The iMasons Incubator is here to help you connect with industry leaders, spark awareness, and accelerate your path to success. If your concept can help drive a more sustainable digital future, we want to hear from you. Don't miss this chance to grow, give back, and shape the digital landscape. Email us today at innovation@imasons.org to find out how the iMasons Incubator can help bring your idea to the world.
My name is Romain Tranchant, and today I'm joined by Waleed Zafar from XYZ Reality, a company transforming how mission-critical projects are planned, built, and delivered with this innovative construction delivery platform. Waleed is the director of Mission Critical. He has a background in investment banking before joining XYZ as his first employee and spending the first years building the technology platform. He then partners with the largest developers in the constructions of data centers. Let's get right into it. Waleed, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me on. Genuinely really appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, and knowing that XYZ Reality is actually a partner to iMasons is great to be able to bring your knowledge, expertise, experience to something that we haven't been talking a lot about. So then we're going to be talking about people. The people side of things on the construction, in the construction industry, construction of data centers more in particular. And I've known of your company for a few years now. I've always been on the lookout for what you were going to come up next. So I'm really glad that we have the time and opportunity to do that today.
No, it's an absolute honor to be able to partner with an organization like Infrastructure Masons. Super excited to not only kind of share what we know about the space and how to help support the delivery of these programs, but also learn as well, right, about what challenges others are going through within the supply chain as well as the developers themselves. So, yeah, really proud. It's an exciting moment for us as a business, and so yeah, it's a deep honor to be able to actually have this conversation.
We've got a lot that we want to cover today, but there might be a few people in the audience that might not know you already. Do you want to start maybe by introducing yourself, what your company does, and then we'll go through some of the topics?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of by way of introduction, my name is Waleed Zafar. I'm the director of Mission Critical for XYZ. Joined the business as the first employee. Spent the first several years building out the tech before transitioning over to the go-to-market side. And now lead our efforts and deploying our solutions globally for our clients and partners. Pretty much as of today, we're actively deployed on about 2.5 gigawatts of hyperscale data center projects around the world, mainly in Europe and North America, but now into APAC as well. And clients and developers, they bring us in basically with two strategic, if you like, focuses in mind. So one is being able to reduce the cost per megawatt. And we're able to do this through the elimination of rework on these project sites. So we've proven at scale that we can help reduce it down to less than 1%. And the second strategic initiative that they bring us in for is being able to accelerate their program delivery. And so we've been able to kind of shave off a number of weeks off the RFS and off the schedule, and therefore then de-risking the entire delivery program in essence. So that's kind of, if you will, a quick synopsis about who we are and what we do.
It's when we discussed about preparation on this, what I found fascinating is that you and your company, for the matter, are highly technological. We're talking about VR headset, we're talking about 3D overlays, we're talking about absolutely fantastic tech. But we quickly realized that actually most of everything we were talking about were down to skill shortage, minimizing the number of people on site, making sure that people were working safe. Yep. Can you take me through maybe your thinking at the moment on the construction side of things and maybe the people aspects? What's your take on the current skill shortage, for example?
Yeah, well, look, like construction's in our DNA as a business, right? So XYZ was founded by David Mitchell, and his background's construction. Like, father was a builder, whole family are in construction. First tool was a shovel, like kind of learn to walk on a building site, right? So like through and through construction. And in essence, he kind of worked in kind of commercial construction. So worked on a number of projects in London, kind of iconic jobs like Battersea Power Station and the Shard, etc. And then in 2014, transitioned over onto the data center market. And he was obsessed with this notion of paperless construction. And the reason why was that, the business that he was working with previously, when they were actually deployed onto this kind of hyperscale data center project in Ireland, they kind of signed up to the project, and all they had was this like 3D model, this beautifully coordinated 3D design model. But that became very kind of useless to the team in the field, right? The folks who are actually installing the set of works. And essentially it would take him and 3 draftsmen, 3 days to be able to produce enough drawings to keep the teams going in the field for 1 day, right? Completely unsustainable. And so he was there like, if there was some way I could take this 3D information and actually position it out on site for the field teams, then that would be able to streamline a lot of the challenges and pains that were going on. And so that was the kind of thesis what started the business, some way of being able to kind of position 3D design information out on site with millimeter accuracy. That then led us to the conclusion that augmented reality would be the only way of being able to do that, right? And so then we was like, okay, cool. We need to be able to, through augmented reality, position hyperscale BIM models out on site with millimeter accuracy. And that therefore then solving the kind of a lot of the challenges. So it really did stem from data center construction bottlenecks, if you will. And that's what then formed this business.
We're really talking here. I mean, if it takes somebody 3 days to produce the graphs and plans and so on that are needed for somebody on site, we're really talking about productivity of whoever is on site. How do they utilize their time? You mentioned the rework already. You're talking about here having to wait until something is being done. Can you take me through like the sort of issues, challenges that are currently felt through a site, which actually prevent workers from being as productive as they could be?
Yeah, absolutely. So like if let's take a normal kind of workflow, if you will, as an example, right? So you've designed this highly kind of coordinated, detailed out 3D model. You have to convert it into thousands of 2D drawings. You issue out those drawings to the field teams. The field team take those drawings, they're out on site, and they have to be able to, 1, understand the drawings, but 2, the most challenging part is actually position, if you will, 3D information out on site with that millimeter accuracy. So they have to conceptualize it and then position it out on site with millimeter accuracy. Now, someone who's been in the industry for 30, 40 years, they're going to be able to understand it a lot better, right? But as we know, there's huge labor shortages in the market and skilled labor shortages, right? And so oftentimes you're not going to be able to get that sort of experienced labor in the field. So then what ends up happening is that, there's a schedule pressure. And so you interpret it the best you can, try to position it the best you can in the field, and then you execute your works, only to find out after the fact that you've actually installed it incorrectly. And so there's loads of solutions out there that tell you about your problems after they've occurred. Like laser scanning, for example, they come in, do like a 360 capture of the field, and then overlay it against a design to see, okay, you've got a deviation between design versus build. But the problem is that it's after the installation's taken place, after the labor's already been allocated, after the cost has been incurred, and now you have to go back and you have to fix it, because now all of a sudden something that you've installed in the field is actually going to clash with the next set of works, right? So that's what we mean by rework, right? So how often does this happen in the field? Well, it's estimated around 30% of the time. So if you think about what that means, it means 30% of the human capital time allocated towards a project is actually allocated towards fixing issues that could have been built right the first time.
It's quite interesting in itself that we're talking about digitization solutions. I mean, you and I know that there are pockets of digitizations. I'm more familiar with operations, but we know there are a number of things that would go on a tablet to validate. All the maintenance has been done, that the safety has been applied, and so on. You're mentioning what I would assume is a BIM 360 or a 3D model of some sort that is being generated by the designers or by the architects before it's passed on to site. So that digitization process took place in certain parts. What's preventing it from happening quicker on site? Because it doesn't seem to be happening on the construction side.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of focus from a technological standpoint has been on kind of optimizing design or optimizing this validation process, right? And if you think about it, what that essentially means is that the field teams are still left to doing things the traditional way, right? So the key in all of this is actually how do we increase the productivity of the labor we do have today, right? So how do we increase the output from the field team in and of itself, such that we're not providing a solution that's reactive, so just telling them their problems after it's occurred, is actually provide a solution that enables them to be able to build it right the first time, in essence, right? Enables them to be able to check their works before and during the installation, such that they are building it right the first time, and therefore then eliminating the reworking clashes that so often plague sites today, right? So it's about not just digitization in the office, it's about digitization in the field, right? And making it such that it's like a seamless experience that it almost becomes invisible in the process, right? It just becomes their day-to-day.
Yeah, there must be a way of, or at least an appetite in the field to actually adopt that technology. That technology has got to be therefore quite valuable for them before it can be adopted. I mean, having been part of transformation projects before, I can tell you, if it's not valuable, people won't do it, and for the right reasons, right?
Yeah.
So how do we then get people that have spent their life working on the tools manually to suddenly start saying, you know what, I'll adopt technology, even though that might not be the field where they feel most comfortable?
Yeah, I'd actually probably push back with a slightly different perspective on the situation, right? Which is that, everybody today, right, uses a smartphone, right, uses an iPhone or an Android device, right? Even the folks on site in the field, right? That's a new piece of technology, right? And they've seamlessly adopted it into their day-to-day lives, right? But construction, for whatever reason, gets such a bad rap for being slow to adopt technology. But I actually think it's probably not construction's fault at all. I actually think it's the technology provider's fault, right? They have, for decades, milked this industry, right, and provided solutions that actually haven't been that helpful for the folks in the field.
Right.
I mean, these same people are using the latest devices in their home and personal lives, right? But when you think about an instrument that's given to these folks in the field as it stands today, they're super complex, right? Super technical. And then all of a sudden, it just increases this barrier to entry. So really, I think technology has failed construction rather than the other way around, right? And that's the reason why there's a low adoption of technology in construction. And so, solutions should genuinely feel as easy to use as a mobile phone.
Yeah, it is that perception of how intuitive the technology will be. I mean, if suddenly we need to train that person for 2 weeks before they can start using it, then we've lost a battle to start with.
Exactly that. It should be natural, right?
Yeah.
It should be seamless, right? That they can just pick it up and it's got a similar interface than what they've already utilize in their day-to-day lives, right? The phones that they utilize or the laptops that they utilize, right? They should be familiar with these sort of solutions already.
So I'd like to look at this in a slightly different angle, because there is one thing that you and I have discussed, which I think will be very important for whoever listens to this podcast. In reality, a lot of people are already trying to fix rework. It's not so much that this is a problem we didn't know about. The problem have been trying to be fixed for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something that really struck a chord with me, and said, well, it's not so much about preventing rework as much as or getting it right first time, as much as making sure we can give the feedback almost immediately. Right? Can you take me through your thinking there? Because as far as I'm concerned, you've got multiple steps. You capture the data, you analyze it, you figure out where the feedback's got to go, you then provide the feedback. But sometime by the time you provide the feedback, the person left the site already. So take me through your thinking there, because I think that was quite interesting.
Yeah. So I look at kind of solutions in the marketplace today, right? and they're exactly as you described, right? They tell you about the problem days or hours or weeks after the fact, right? But if you think about it from the perspective of the engineer or the builder in the field, right? Like, just think about their own morale, right? They've installed a set of works. They get told 2-3 days later that they've actually installed it wrong, and they have to now go back, correct all that work, right? Like, nobody goes to work with the intention of making mistakes, right? And then you're constantly finding out that you make, yeah, right. But like, no, genuinely, like, no one goes to work with the intention of making mistakes, but they've never been provided a tool that enables them to do it right the first time. So how about just investing that time and energy in being able to provide them with a solution that enables them to do their job right the first time, right? And so if you think about, okay, like, what does that ultimately mean from a solution? What does a dream solution that can do that look like, right? Well, one, it has to be able to provide real-time feedback, not like hours or days later. It has to be genuinely real-time, right? Two, it has to be able to kind of provide them in the field with all the information that they need to be able to build their assets correctly. So it needs to have the 3D model overlaid. It needs to be able to load up the other packages of work so they're able to kind of understand the constructability of the design prior to the build out in and of itself. And three, it needs to be seamless, right? It has to be able to feel like that their output is actually going to come faster. It's not like it's adding more hours to their work. It actually overall should be adding significantly less hours. And on top of providing significantly less hours to be able to execute the work, it should actually provide a higher output as well, that they can get more done in a day. So that's where I think as a, if you like, as a sub-industry like construction technology, I think that's where it's fundamentally failed, is that they haven't focused on the right thing.
So one of the point I probably never realized as well is that as we're working with 3D models, physical, real world,
Yep.
If you install something wrong, that has a detrimental impact later down the line. So it's not so much that we bring people to fix it. One, your plan incurs delays, but also if you do something that can't be fixed easily and you're like, well, we're going to have to live with it, then suddenly all your 3D models and so on are just out of sync, I would assume.
Correct. Yeah. And then you have to go through this like long and lengthy procedure of being able to update the models to create like an accurate as-built side or as-built model so you can hand it over to the facility management side of the business, right? To the FAC ops team in and of itself. And that's a lengthy and cumbersome process too.
For somebody like me who's never really worked in the construction side or architecture or design, how detailed are those models to be able to then say, oh, we've installed those things to millimeter accuracy in the first place?
Yeah, like the models are already detailed as it stands today, right? Because as it stands today, the models are detailed enough that they can actually cut the drawings, right? Such that the field teams can actually install the work. So all the information is actually already there. But what we're doing is almost like a rework in and of itself from the as-built model standpoint, right? Like we've created this beautiful 3D model, convert into thousands of 2D drawings, construct this 3D asset that doesn't actually fundamentally match the 3D model. So then we have to now go back to the 3D model, update it to reflect what's actually taking place, and then hand it over to the FAC ops team. So there's like multiple sets of rework. It's not just the field team that suffers from rework then. It's like it affects all parts of the business.
One of the things, and having had to do rework myself, we know what kind of mentality we come back in, already annoyed having to do the rework, already under pressure because we've got other works piling up.
Yep.
I would assume this is not good for, I would say, health and safety maybe, and other aspects that might drive actually, I would say, more risky behavior, not because people are, not caring, but because the pressure piles up.
Yep, exactly that, right? So if you were to actually analyze all the safety incidences that occur on site, right, more than around about 3/4 of them actually take place during rework procedures in and of itself, right? And then exactly to your point, like you just explained the reason why, right? You have to go back, you're under a time schedule pressure, right? You're going to then take shortcuts because you're under pressure to be able to kind of fix the issue, right? So you don't follow the perfect RAMs that were set out initially to be able to conduct that activity. Those are the sort of things that actually leads to these like health and safety challenges in the field, right? And so there's like the rework problem is has such a significant impact to so many different parts of the business that people aren't aware. And the reason why people aren't aware is because it's been accepted for so long.
Yeah. You mentioned risk assessment and method statement there as a key document for doing any piece of work. So it's traditional to have that for the first piece of work being done. But normally, what would normally happen is that you would need to have that again for the rework itself.
Correct.
And that's yet another piece that needs to be read on. That's quite lengthy. So understanding what's the current state, what's the desired state, and all the steps in between.
Exactly that, right? And so now you're beginning to think, like, now everybody's like listening to this, right? They're thinking about it, they're like, oh wait, actually you have, because of the rework in the field, a lot of my day-to-day job ends up being reworked too, right? I have to sit in meetings to go through these issues, right? What impact does this have on the schedule standpoint, right? I then have to have discussions with my supply chain, right? On things that, you know, if they were actually installed correctly, I wouldn't have to have those conversations, right? And then you begin to see like the level of impact that rework has across the entire duration of a build program.
Yeah. Let's talk about the need for technology a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Because I'd love to see everybody with a virtual headset. Not everybody is maybe in a place where they can or where they feel comfortable with something like this. So how does it work in practice?
Yeah. So in essence, the solution that we've made, we call it the Atom, right? In essence, what it is the world's most accurate augmented reality headset, and we built it specifically for construction. And how it works is that we essentially take those 3D design models and we can position those out on site with millimeter accuracy. And our ultimate vision is pretty straightforward, right? Is that we fundamentally want builders to build from holograms. That's where we want to get to. That's the North Star. Like until everybody in the world, every construction builder in the world has actually been able to wear these headsets, right? So we've got a bit of a journey to be able to get to, right?
A little bit,
right?
A short journey.
Exactly that, right? And like just to kind of, I suppose, like me talking about it's one thing. I've actually got a couple of videos here that does a better job of actually just showing it too, right? So in essence, you can kind of see that 3D model overlaid with millimeter accuracy, right? And you can see here some of the holding down bolts being placed in position. Boom, you know it's been installed exactly as per design, thanks to that AR headset in the field, right? And so you're actually validating your works in real time, right? Because you can see exactly where it needs to go. For things like layout, for example, right, you can see the model positioned with millimeter accuracy such that the field teams can then just quickly go ahead and place that set of works. In this case here, this would have taken them about 3.5 hours to be able to position that set of works with the level of tolerance required. But with the Atom headset on, it took them 30 seconds.
So just for anybody that might not have the video, and to bring a bit more details on it, you're imagine that you're literally looking at through your normal field of view, but you suddenly see where the object should be placed.
Exactly.
And all of that is coming from the 3D models to start with. And literally, and that was, I mean, and this is something I did not picture, by the way, is somebody grabs a pencil and say, oh, by the way, based on me wearing the headset and where things should go, let me just put a bit of pencil on the floor to mark where things are supposed to go. Exactly. And that for me was what was the interesting part, is you suddenly realize that if the model is accurate, which we would hope it is, yep. And you place exactly where the model tells you, and the model verifies it straight away on site even before you left, you certainly know that your job is done and you don't have to do the rework.
Exactly.
But what does it take for a person to actually get started? Because I've tried virtual reality headset. It takes a bit to get used to. Yeah. It's not straightforward. They can be, depending on the software you're utilizing, they can be a little bit more complicated. Yep. What does it take? Yeah,
so we built this for the industry in and of itself, right? And so one is that because it's augmented reality, right, it becomes like, it's like a heads-up display, right? So it becomes like natural to your day-to-day workflow, in the sense that you already have to wear a safety visor in the field and you already have to wear a hard hat in the field, right? So nothing changes there. It's not like a new piece of equipment in that sense. But when you go out on site, what's amazing is actually the fact that if you think about how 2D language, 2D drawings are today, 2D is not a natural language for us humans, right? We're 3D creatures. We operate in a 3D environment.
Yeah.
But yet we task our trades to look at 2D drawings, conceptualize a 3D asset, and then have to position that information out on site with millimeter accuracy. Versus if you just put on this headset, go out on site, you can see exactly where you need to build, right? And what I mean by that is that 3D is a natural language for us humans, right? And so how long does it take for someone to be able to pick up? In essence, a couple of hours, right? It's just learning, like just the little tools and tricks to be able to utilize the headset, right? So it doesn't take long at all, right? Because essentially we built all the intelligence within the headset and the platform in and of itself, such that we're able to kind of take, if you will, lower skilled workers and actually deploy them in the field, and for them to have like the same level of experience as like a 40-year veteran, for example.
Yeah, there is something you were saying there, is that without the help, transferring from 2D to 3D, making sure everything's positioned the right way is a skill in itself. Being able to know where to measure from, where to, especially as we were watching that video and have massive tanks in it, containers for what I would assume might be either air or liquid or whatever. But those things are big.
Yep.
And they've got 3 foot on the floor. And so you can't just say, oh, I'll measure from one side of the tag. It's like you've got to know exactly where the drill bit needs to go, exactly. and so on, right?
Exactly that, right? And if you think about like the DC developments that are taking place today, they're super large facility, but they are absolutely jam-packed with MEP works, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you just look up at the ceiling, right, and there's like 5 layers of different services that are going through it. Right, like think about the challenge of being able to coordinate that installation. It's so hard as it stands today, right? And the pressure from a time and quality and productivity standpoint are so high.
Yeah.
Right, and so like this is kind of the whole reason why we developed our solution, is just basically make the teams in the field lives easier.
Yeah, this is I mean, the natural thing is to talk about the reduction of the need for people to come back and redo their work. But the true impact of this is what you said in your introduction statement, is to be able to reduce the cost and time that it takes to build these facilities.
Exactly.
Can you take me through the sort of scale that you're seeing in the field?
Yeah.
I mean, we know a lot of data centers are under pressure to be up now, literally as quickly as possible, plus or minus power availability to site, but that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
But what's the scale? If we remove 30% of rework, I would assume is not just 30% of rework removed from the project. It might be a bit more than that.
Yeah. So like we've been able to reduce rework down to less than 1% on these project sites, right? And how large are these project sites? Some of the single largest buildings that we're working on, they're like 300 megawatt buildings, right? 500 megawatt buildings, right? Individual buildings, not even campuses, just the buildings in and of itself, right? They're going to peak at like 8,000 to 10,000 workers at any given time, right? These they're like colossal size buildings and working at an incredible pace. And so what impact does reducing rework have, right? It has a significant amount of impact on reducing health and safety incidences, right? Which is important, right, as a priority. It's been able to reduce the cost of delivery down by anywhere between 7 and 11%. That's what we've seen as a resulting factor, right, of the whole project, right? And when you're talking about the tens of billions being spent in CapEx, right, that is a huge sum of capital that you've been able to save. But also what we've seen is that it actually frees up the labor as well in the field, right? Such that they're able to kind of do more with less, right? And so we've seen like specialty contractors in the field deploy the solution and essentially been able to half the allocated labor for a specific set of works and actually increase the output by 5x, which then that other half that's been saved, they can actually be allocated towards the next package of work, so the next set of activities. And we've seen specialty contractors on like 80, 90, 100 megawatt sites being able to kind of reduce their labor by that much, increase their output by 5x, and actually deliver their, if you will, 12-month package of works within 4 months. Like an unbelievable feat by any stretch of the imagination. And then that team and that crew becomes available then to work on the next set of projects. Right. And so when we take that macro issue that we have in the industry, which is that, where like just in North America, right, we are 500,000 construction workers short to be able to deliver on the data center demand as it stands today. Not even what we have coming up next year and the year after. We're 500,000 construction workers short on the data center demand as it stands today. So in other words, we need to be able to increase the output of the labor we do have today by that much to be able to make up for the gap.
I mean, you're talking about 500,000 there. There are other initiatives happening, right?
Correct.
So we're, especially through iMasons, there was a big piece of work happening where we're bringing in people from the military, people from other industries coming in and being redeployed into data center work. We're talking to schools, we're talking to universities, we're talking to, how does that, I mean, I would assume, to some degree that all of that is has got to come together as a combination for solving the problem.
Absolutely, right. And there, all of this is needed to be able to solve the problem, right? And being able to bring in new talent into the industry is an immediate solution to the situation. Bringing in and focus on the education piece for the next generation, super important to be able to solve it in the medium and long term, right? But the problem that we have as an industry as it stands today collectively is that we're trying to build these assets now, right? So we need solutions that can kind of come in and actually help solve this problem as it stands today, right? And so that near-term issue, I believe, is that technology's role to be able to kind of fill that gap.
So I would assume that by generating a lot more efficiency on site, if we know that becomes the new norm, somebody who will be designing and planning how the data center will be constructed will be like, okay, great. What else can I do? Where else can I go that will make use of all of that efficiency being created on site? Have you seen anything happening there?
Yeah, like in essence, yes, right. And just to kind of touch on it a bit more, what we've seen is that the industry suffers from a rework issue, but they also suffer from a transparency issue as to understanding as to exactly where they're at on the job site, right? And so being able to kind of tie in schedule and cost information into the platform is something that the industry came to us and asked us to solve for. So we did, right? So we're able to kind of track 100% of all activities throughout construction. Now, why do we do this? Well, the reason why is such that they're able to know the start time and end time of all the different activities, such that when they get to the end of the project, they can analyze it and optimize a design for the next set of works, right? The next kind of build program taking place. Like, how do we get the lessons learned from one site and disseminate it across their entire portfolio, right? And so that's what the data and the power of the data actually has in being able to inform kind of the teams to be able to, who are looking ahead to the next build program, so to speak.
Have you seen any practical examples of what people have been able to adapt or change and so on as they move on to the next package?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So, we had a hyperscale client of ours who deployed us on a portfolio scale, asked us to track everything that was taking place and reduce the rework and impact in the field. And when we're on the project site, we found out that the current job site that was taking place in Ireland, when it came to buzz duct installation, was doing 13 meters per day, right? Like, really good pace of works. But their job currently taking place in Paris was only doing 9 meters per day. Why, right? Like, why was the project in Ireland's output so much higher than that of what was taking place in Paris, right? And they actually got the two specialty contractors to jump on a call, right, to understand, okay, what work methodology are you having? Because it's essentially the same design that's taking place between the two, right? So it was actually an execution issue in this particular example. And they actually just exchanged notes, and then the Paris team actually improved their set of activities then in the field, right, and raised their productivity rates. But again, they wouldn't have known this if they hadn't had the data to be able to measure their performance today.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that it feels like it was that missing piece in the middle where high tech ahead, so where we had 3D models for now a decade, 2 decades, and we had high tech on operations with your CAFM systems, your risk management system, and so on, and that piece in the middle that was entirely missing, that would actually connect the two. Because I would assume that minimizing rework also has an incidence in operations down the line where your data center is as it was designed. Now, I'm not saying the design is faultless,
Yeah.
But at least you know that whatever was designed was installed, and so therefore is far closer to operations, and the handover to operations must have a greater beneficial impact from that point of view.
Exactly that. And the same operations team can then leverage that 3D model too, right, for their activities, right? They can load up the information within each of the different assets, right, as to like all the, you know, the OEMs, et cetera, into each one of these equipment items. And then you can imagine a world where, you know, the operations team, they're wearing this headset, they're clicking on the asset that's going through some issues or challenges, loads up the manual in place, they're able to conduct the sequence of works, right? And this is the kind of world that we're shifting towards now, right? That like by focusing on this bottleneck, which has been construction, right, and being able to focus on the productivity issue, it impacts so many others that everybody else is willing to chip in to be able to help solve this problem.
So we could carry on the discussion forever. I really love what you guys have been doing, and I think there is a real drive as well for these sort of things. But let's talk a little bit about the future, right? So today we're talking about, you know, a few people within the site being able to capture some of the data, validate, you know, that everything is actually done as per design. What's the future like? Are we moving to something else? Are we expanding on the existing? Project yourself 10 years ahead. What's the technology looking like?
Yeah, like fundamentally, we will probably be at a point in time where all the specialty contractors in the field are wearing the Atom headsets. Like all the crew are wearing the Atom headset. And you can imagine a world where they wear the headset, they go through the gates, right? It tells them exactly where they need to go to on the job site itself. And then they can see exactly what their activities are for the day, right? They're installing that set of works, it's validating and capturing it as being installed, and that then feeds back into the model, the schedule, the cost data too, such that when they actually get to the end of the week or the end of the month, right, it's real-time valuation reports, and so you can immediately pay the contractors for the works that they've already done, right? So it's real-time payments then as a direct result of this. And as a result of being able to do all of this, right, you can then increase the output of the labor in the field. So ultimately, where we see where the world is going to go is that all the builders in the field will wear this Atom headset, and it actually helps them to be able to do more with significantly less.
That's amazing. Yeah, looking forward to how you progress on this. Look, this is all the time we've got allocated for today. Waleed, again, thank you very much for coming in and explaining your thoughts on the construction industry and where this is all going. I really appreciate your candor on this. If any of our listener wants to find more about XYZ Reality, you can go and have a look at xyzreality.com, where they have examples, videos, and definitions of their products and services. If you want to reach out to Waleed directly, I'm putting the email address directly on the screen here. For those who are listening only, Waleed.Zafar at xyzreality.com. And of course, as usual, the discussion will carry on our Forge platform, so iMasons.mobilize.io, where all of this will be posted on. And if you have questions, recommendations, or if you even want to feature on the podcast and get in touch with the iMasons committee for innovations, please reach out. On that note, Waleed, thank you very much for all your time today, and we'll hope to have you soon again.
Appreciate you having me on, and great job. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, buddy. Bye.
Infrastructure Masons is a global, non-profit, professional association of individuals connected and empowered to build a greater digital future for all. If you too want access to networking events, forums, and summits that foster innovation and influence, register now and join the other 6,000 committed participants at imasons.org/membership application.